ॐ ॐ ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं कर्वावहै तेजस्विनावतीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मत् आचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् ॐ गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः ॐ सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणि विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा कार्पण्यदोषोपहतः स्वभावः पृच्छामि त्वां धर्मसम्मूढचेताः यश्रेयस्या निश्चितं ब्रूहि तन्मे शिष्यस्तेऽहं शाधि मां त्वां प्रपन्नम् ॐ वाङ्मे मनसि प्रतिष्ठिता मनो मे वाचि प्रतिष्ठितम् आविर्मयेधि वेदस्य माहानि स्तः श्रुतं मे मा प्रहासीः अनेन अधीतेन अहोरात्रान् सन्ततामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारम् अवतु मामवतु वक्तारम् अवतु वक्तारम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पक्षेमाक्षभिर्जत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैः तुष्टुवाग्वं सस्तन्यूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृधश्रवाः स्वस्ति न पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति न टाक्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्ददातु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ अहं वृक्षस्य रेरिव कीर्तिप्रेष्ठं गिरिरिव ऊर्ध्व पवित्रो वाजिनीव स्वमृतमस्मि द्रविणग्वं सवर्सचं सुमेध अमृतोक्षितः इति त्रिशङ्कुर्वेदानुवशनम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
Narayan, everyone. Just 1 second, I realized you connect me speaker.
Narayan, everyone.
Smartphone connected. 2 devices connected.
Okay, excellent. All right, so we have a new member here. His name is Prem, as you can all see him, the handsome man on top. So he's Prem. If you can just like quickly introduce yourself, so we're all familiar. Just a quick 2-minute introduction on what brings you to the class, and then we can get started. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Yes, I moved to Singapore in 2011. My wife is in this Gita Parivar family also. So when we dropped off our daughter at uni, she said, "Why now that you have free time, why don't you join this also every Sunday?" So I was lucky to find a perfect timing to join you guys. And I also have grown up in the Chimayananda family. My parents have been very active in that. And so that's me, hoping to learn and grow.
Excellent. Thank you. Welcome, Prem. We'll get started with the class and then we'll do a round of introductions for everyone else at the end. Okay. Okay.
Right, so we're going to start with chapter 16 today. And as we remember, like chapter 15 is the last chapter. So, Supreme, just a quick this thing. We have Gita is divided into three parts. There is the first part, which is the Karma Yoga, 6 chapters. The first 6 chapters deal with Karma Yoga. The next 6 chapters are with Bhakti Yoga. And the last 6 chapters are part of Gyan Yoga. And we are halfway through the last shatak. We finished the chapter 15, and today we'll start chapter 16. Chapter 15 is the last chapter in Gita where Bhagwanji talked about the philosophy, right? So going forward, there is no further expression, there is no further enunciation of philosophy or new concepts, right? Now we are going to be focusing on application over next two chapters, where we'll try and find like the stuff that we have read, what it means to bring it really back home to us, right? End of the day, it's all about my me story. It's not about how much I know, it's about what it means for me on a day-to-day basis. So now the next 2 chapters will really bring it home, what we have read before this, in very practical terms, right? And then the last chapter is going to be like one really big summary of everything we have read and how to like tie everything together. Okay, so with that, let's start with 16th chapter. Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha. Ath Shodasho Adhyayah. Shall we have Sanchita? Will you read with us today?
Considering you read so well yesterday in the Ramcharitamanas class.
Chapter 16, Devasura Sampat Vibhava Yoga, the yoga of divisions of divine and demoniacal properties. It has been repeatedly stressed in the foregoing chapters that the aim of human life is to realize the self. There are 2 main disciplines for the attainment of this aim, Karma Yoga and Sankhya Yoga. The yoga of devotion has been explained as underlying both of these disciplines. In the domain of actions, the importance of righteous actions has been emphasized time and again. The essence of Karma Yoga is that righteous actions done with dedication lead easily to self-realization. In Sankhya Yoga, the performer of actions is devoid of the sense of doership, but such a person performs only righteous actions quite involuntarily. Righteous actions are based on virtuous thoughts. In this chapter, the Lord would explain in detail which thoughts fall in the category of virtuous thoughts on which the magnificent edifice of righteous actions is built. He would also explain in detail those negative thoughts which result in unrighteous actions and which are responsible for a person's downfall. Both of these sets of thoughts are respectively known as divine properties and demoniacal properties. Therefore, this chapter is titled The Yoga of Divisions of Divine and Demoniacal Properties. Connection. The first 3 shlokas deal with the divine properties. Okay.
Wait. Want to start? I start. Want to start? Okay. So, in our being, right, we have been gifted with our divine properties, which come from our soul, which is our true nature. But because we have a human body and we've taken this animal form, there are properties that I would say also constitute as demonical, which are basal properties that come from our nature, right? Now, there are 2 types of human beings. There's either a divine human being or there is a demonical human being, right? Our entire experience of life is the choice between the two. Right? We have the choice. This is basically the division that we have, the choice that we have in every single situation that the battle of confusion that exists. How should I act? Right? So in this chapter, it highlights that the battle we face is the battle between doing the right thing, operating from our true nature, or operating from the lower nature, which is the denominal nature. Think you want to add something?
Yeah, so to add on to what Abhinav said, let's look at the chapter name first, right? And understand the chapter name. Daiva Sura Sampad Vibhag Yog. Sampad. What does Sampad really mean? Sampad means wealth. Okay? Sampad means wealth. Wealth of Daivi nature or wealth of Asuri nature. Daivi, now this is the fun part, right? What Abhinav was always talking about. Now, this is one of those chapters that is going to go against at the very beginning, it will go against everything you've heard of from the time you were born. We've been told that at the base, we are all animals, right? We are equated to animals from a scientific point of view. And we have talked about our animality, our basal nature. It is our basic nature to behave in a certain manner, right? Like we talk about our survival instincts. We talk about how we behave in certain manners in mob, and and then we always talk about how we need to curb those instincts, that we need to learn to win over these basic instincts. Okay, so scientifically, or what we have heard on a daily basis, is that at the base we are all animals, we are living in a jungle, and that we need to evolve ourselves, right? This chapter is taking the absolute opposite stance. Gita is telling us in this chapter that that's all absolute nonsense. At the very base, the very inherent nature of us is actually divine. Okay? And all the demonical aspects of us, all the animality that we see, is actually acquired over a period of lifetime from outside. So we don't have to acquire divine properties, because divinity is inherent to us. What we only need to do is to give up the demonical aspects of it. We have to unlearn the bad habits. Okay, so that is the starting point, which is telling us that we have a lifetime of unlearning to do when we start on this journey. Okay, so it is going to challenge all those basic concepts we have lived with. All right. So we're gonna now, another very interesting thing, right? We are going to focus only a few shlokas in this chapter, and we'll start off with that on the divine properties, on the Devi Sampada, the divine wealth, which is us. And the rest of the chapter is really going to focus a lot more on the demonical properties. So why should that be the case? The reason is that we are all on our journey, and we are all at various stages where we have ton of unlearning to do. Our cup is already full. And because this cup is full, it is very difficult for us to capture and collect God's grace that is always around us. And the way to collect God's grace is to first empty this cup out. You remember we have had that experiment of a cup filled with dirty water. And when you have a cup that is empty, you are immediately able to fill it with clean water. But a cup full of dirty water, it requires a long time of clean water flowing in, which will slowly dilute away, and eventually, you end up with a cup of clean water, right? But it takes a long time. We are all that, right? We are all cups full of dirty water. And so the entire chapter will mostly focus on what are these demonical properties, how do they manifest in us, and how and what is the impact that they create on us, and how do we get rid of them, right? The entire chapter, most of it is focus is really based on that, right? In some form or the other, we're going to be talking about that.
So just to add to what Tuna is saying, right? We go through a lot of battle internally, and that battle is to choose how to act, how to be. And whenever we have sharing in the class, it's exactly that. I have a particular situation, and I reacted a certain way. I got angry, I got this, but you come to class and you say, I didn't want to be that person. So what happened in that battle is we lost that battle. The divinity inside of us lost, and then demonical, it's so difficult to say that word. Demonical won that battle, right? So there is another line here that
background. Then we go. Now this chapter is directly related to chapter 1. In chapter 1, we started off this entire thing with the Kurukshetra with Dharmakshetra, right? And in Kurukshetra, Dharmakshetra, which is our body as we learned, right? We have two armies. We have the Kaurav army and we have the Pandav army. The names that we took in that when we started the chapter, and Duryodhan started to list various warriors that are fighting on behalf of Pandavas and the warriors that are fighting on behalf of Kauravas. And then he goes on to enlist the names of the conches which they all blew, right? All of those are what? Essentially, those are various
properties,
dehbhav or mental faculties which help either the Kaurav army or the Pandav army, right? So those names are not just names, right? All of those names have a meaning, and they are all associated. And we read only a few names, correct? If you remember, we talked about what does Dhritarashtra mean, and what is the Dhritarashtra consciousness inside of us. We talked about Gandhari consciousness. We understood the Duryodhan consciousness. We also understood Bhishma Pitama consciousness. We understood Sanjay consciousness, right? So those are some of the main consciousness that we talked about.
So Prem, just to give you a context, like you understand, Gita happens in the middle of a war between Bhagwan Krishna and Arjun, right? So in the very first couple of shlokas, they're talking about the battle that happens with that they are part of, which gave birth to Gita. In reality, the way to see that is that the battle is never outside, it's within us. And what Tuvina is referring to is every single character who is part of that story in the Gita book evokes a different property or evokes a different voice inside of us. That creates the battle within. So that's what she's referring to. I wanted to get the context. Sorry.
So basically, we understood some of those voices, right? And you will now go a little bit deeper in this chapter, and you have to remember and connect this back to that chapter 1. So next time when we read chapter 1, you will have the benefit of this chapter 16, right? And then we'll read chapter 1 again. Then you'll understand it that much deeper. But essentially, all of the Kaurava army represents those demonical properties. And they are all inside of us. We have both Kaurava army inside of us. We have both Pandava army inside of us. And what Gita is now telling us is that they will list the divine properties, and we have to understand that these are actually inherent of us. We don't have to acquire them from outside. We just need to let go of the demonical properties, and the divinity will shine forth from inside of us. Okay.
So
when we are on the wrong path, right? When demonical properties are winning over, when the demonical consciousness and demonical voices are winning inside of us, which happens all the time, we constantly are in a need for external validation. Okay. because we don't know if we are right. Right? There is nothing. See, the difference between Kaurav army and Pandav army was what? The Pandava army had a very clear single goal. Every consciousness fighting on the side of Pandav was fighting the war for only one and one reason alone. And that reason was that it's a dharma ka war. Okay? Dharma yuddha hai. So they are only there because it is their duty to be there. It is the right thing to do. Okay, and not just right thing to do from our perspective, it is the right thing to do from a social perspective, it is the right thing to do from the scriptural perspective. It is their prescribed duty. And because they all had only one single goal, even though the Pandav army was much smaller than the Kaurava army, they were eventually able to win because all the forces and all the energy is directed towards only a single cause. They are all fighting in the same direction. They are all rowing in the same direction. There's no energy that is wasted here and there. Kaurav army, on the other hand, is this ragtag bunch of different sets of voices inside of us, different sets of people being represented there, who all have different agendas. All right. So you have one person who wants one thing, the second person wants the second thing, third person wants the third thing. Okay. And you need to spend considerable amount of energy to keep that ragtag army together because they are all rowing in their own different directions. They all have their own agendas. You're constantly, Duryodhan as the head of that army is constantly trying to pull them together. And the way to pull them together is constantly through taunting, through like showing them a carrot, showing them a stick, right? That kind of thing. This is not an internally motivated army. This is an army that is going for its own agendas, its own little goals, and they're all basal in nature. They are all driven by fear or anxiety, or they are driven by greed, by lust, by some sort of covetousness. Okay. So that is the nature of the Kaurava army. And when we are on the path of dharma, right? When we are on the divine path, when we are doing the right thing, we know it. Internally, there is complete clarity as to why I'm doing something, and then it doesn't matter what others say. They may say A, B, C, it doesn't matter to me. I will stick to my path. I'll be able to explain myself to people when they ask for it. And then it doesn't matter whether they agree with it or not. I'm not in the business of making other people agree or become my evangelist. I'm only on the path of doing what I need to do. Okay. Um,
So
and
just to add to what Tuina is saying, right? So in this chapter, we will study in detail 26 divine qualities, and we'll detail about 6 to 10 demonical qualities. What the way to visualize what Tuina just said about the 6 different boats or 10 different boats versus the 26 qualities. With divine qualities, the magic is you implement just one and the rest will follow. That's the difference. With divine qualities, you just need to focus on one or two qualities, and the rest will automatically become part of your nature as long as you're focusing on implementing that one quality correctly. Right? And all of the 26 are, like Tuina said, are qualities inside of us. They've just been smothered with layers of dirt, dust, etc., because our mind is fully focused on acquiring more things from samsara, whether it's validation, whether it's things, we'll talk about that later.
so when we are on the divine path and we know it, we don't need external validation, and we don't need to blow our own punch. But when people ask for it, or when there is a need for it, whenever there is a requirement for it, when that conch blows, that conch is extremely powerful and extremely thunderous. So in chapter 1, there are 2-3 shlokas where they talk about the various conches that were blown by both sides of the army. And the number of conches on Pandava's army side was very few. But yet when they blew those conches, they say that it really created fear in the hearts of the Kaurava's army. Okay? Because Pandav army is extremely grounded. Okay, उनके नीचे की जो धरती है ना वो हिलती नहीं है. So they are very stable. They are not constantly asking themselves, why am I fighting this war? They know exactly why they are there, and that doesn't vacillate. Okay, so the fewer number of people also will cause a very loud, thunderous noise when they speak. So when truth speaks, everyone else will stand and listen in awe. That's the nature of divine properties, and when we are fighting the divine war. When we are not on the divine path, okay, when the reasons we are doing something are not grounded in the truth, they are not grounded in the principles, then we are constantly shifting. Our agendas are constantly shifting, and our goals are constantly shifting. And so our reasons are constantly shifting. And I'm always in that process of questioning, am I doing the right thing? Am I on the right path? Should I be doing this? Should I not be doing this? And more importantly, now I want external validation because I don't know if I'm right or not. So I constantly seek external validation. I'm constantly blowing my punch. I'm constantly talking about what I'm doing right and how, and I constantly want others to join me as a way of validation. I constantly want other people to praise me, to tell me that I'm doing the right thing, how awesome I am, how amazing I am. Right? I can't deal with censure. I can't deal with criticism. I only want people to tell me how amazing I am. Right? And this whole blowing of the conscious, this whole constantly talking about myself, but this whole constant show off is a way to hide my weaknesses. Because the very nature of Kaurava army is that it is based on weaknesses. It is brought together through exploitation of weaknesses. Like Dronacharya was there. Why? Dronacharya ko, how did Duryodhan get whip passion into Dronacharya? By constantly reminding him that on the other side is your big Shatru, who was Drupad. And then he was constantly saying, your Drupad's son, your friend Drupad's son is there fighting against us. Drupad is here, right? So you're constantly, and why was Karn there? Duryodhan was telling him that I am going to give you that respect that nobody else gave you, right? So that weakness that every one of them has, Duryodhan is what? It is a tree of anger. So he is trying to constantly whip passion and anger inside of others by exploiting their weaknesses. So it's an army whose very basis is weakness of some kind. That weakness comes from something you want to avoid, or that weakness comes from a space of fear or anxiety, and so you wanted to avoid something, and so you're doing something. You can't deal with a loss of something. You can't deal with facing some situation, or it is based on greed, lust, covetousness of trying to get something else that you don't have. So it's the basis of abhav. Okay. So Kaurava army and these demonical properties always are based on some kind of weakness. And so you're constantly blowing the conch to hide those weaknesses and create a show of strength. And that show of strength is obviously not real. And so there is a lot of hypocrisy involved. Right? We've seen that hypocrisy in chapter 1 when Duryodhan comes and says that, oh, we are victorious as an army because we've got Bhishma Pitama and he's the strongest of them all. And in the very next shloka, he says, every one of you's job is to protect Bhishma Pitama. I mean, I'm sorry. Like, wasn't he like the strongest person on this planet? And so then now you're saying that everybody needs to protect him only instead of him protecting others, right? So you're not thinking straight. You're not talking straight. Right? You're constantly in that space of confusion yourself. How can you win such a war long term? You are destined to go down the path of defeat eventually. Right? You may have these small battles that you win, but the war is lost end of the day. So basically this is how we connect this back to chapter 1. Now, we have constantly said that there is a clear hierarchy which we follow. When we don't follow the path of Gita, we are always focusing our lives and our thoughts on action. क्या action करना है क्या नहीं करना है, and then what is the result that accrues from it, right? So our life is entirely spent on action, result, action, result, action, result. And then Gita comes into our lives and teaches us are all wrong. There are two layers before this, and those are the only two layers we focus. What are those two layers? There is purpose and there is bhav. The purpose with which we have to do an action, the bhav with which we have to do an action. And Gita says that these are the only two things we focus on. And after we have focused on these two things, the action that actually happens does not matter at all. And the result, even less so, because we have zero control over the actual actions we take. And we have literally no control over the results that accrue from it. While we think and we want to have complete control over our actions, actually we have very little control because our actions are determined by hundreds of things in our VVGP, which will alter. Even if we have the same purpose and same bhav, the actual action can alter because of the VVGP within which we are trying to execute a particular action. Okay, that VVGP will alter that action. Okay, and as we adjust to that VVGP. So the results are completely outside of our control, which is why we don't focus on them at all. Yeah. So now in this chapter, we're going back to the very top. The top being the purpose. Purpose is what? Purpose are our thoughts. Purpose exists in our thoughts. Our thoughts are the subtlest of the four aspects, and that is where the most power lies. And the most powerful is the space that we will now focus on, because now we're chapter 16. First 6 chapters, we focused a lot on, we talked about purpose. We also talked about bhav, and we said why Karma Yoga happens at the level of purpose and bhav, and not at the level of action. Today in this chapter, we are going to go deeper inside that purpose and see what creates the right purpose. How do we catch ourselves and see whether the purpose and the bhav is correct or not? We're going to go one level deeper. And these are with practical things that will help us understand whether, because our ego is very smart, very sneaky.
So, Prem, let me just quickly explain to you. Every action that we do, there are 4 stages to it. There is the purpose with which you do an action. There is the bhav with which you do it. Bhav means it's a combination
like
of intention and emotion. It's a combination. There's no direct translation, right? So your purpose could be to make food, but are you making it with the right intention of it being healthy for the family? And then are you doing it with the right emotion, which is of love and seva, because it's an act of service you're doing for the family, right? So the third is the actual action that we do. And the fourth is the result. So what Tuina was basically saying is all of Gita exists at aligning at purpose and bhav level for every action that we do. The second terminology she used, which VVGP, which is translated in Hindi.
Vyakti, Vastu, Ghatna, Paristhiti. Everything in this world is captured within these 4 things.
So
Vyakti,
this person,
Vastu,
situation,
Vastu is
object,
Ghatna, event, Paristhiti is situation or circumstances.
Yeah. So everything we do in this world is these 4 things. There's nothing else that we interact in the world with. Right? So that's the context of it.
Yeah. So now what we would do is that we will now go to the level of vichar, the thought. Okay. And what Bhagwan ji says is that if we have, हम लोग क्या करते हैं ना, हम लोग we are always focusing on सदाचार. Okay, behave well, drawing room behavior, है ना, कि drawing room में सामने guest आया है, we'll teach our kids also the same thing. Yeah, you behave well in front of the guest, but you don't always focus on how you think about that guest. उसके जाने के बाद अब उसी के बारे में 4 चीजें बोल दो, ठीक है? But then what are we teaching our kids? That there is a drawing room behavior and then there is a real behavior or real thoughts. And Gita says that's all like utter nonsense.
That's all
Yeah,
hypocrisy.
it's all hypocrisy.
That is
This
the first
demonical way of thinking.
that's the first demonical property, hypocrisy.
So we have to think about sad vichar, right thoughts. If we have the right thoughts, they will naturally lead to sadachar. Okay, sadachar means that our bhav will become pure and our behavior will become pure. Right? When our behavior becomes pure, which emanates from the right thoughts first, then there would be satkar. Actions will automatically be purified. Automatically. फिर आप किसी से मुंह से आपके कठोर शब्द भी निकल रहे हैं ना, तो भी it will come from a space of love and the right intention. उनसे हमें पाप नहीं अप्रूव होता, right? So the whole thing is that sadachar, sad vichar, which leads to sadachar, which will lead to satkar. And we don't just focus on sadachar. So that is why in our mind it isn't about कि मैंने अंदर अंदर किसी को बहुत कुछ बोल दिया, गुस्सा कर दिया, इतनी चीजें बोल दी, but मुंह पे कुछ नहीं बोला, and then we say it doesn't matter, I didn't say that to him, it was just in my mind.
You know, a lot of times we act good because we want to look good, or we want our image to be validated as a good person.
Or because we are very fearful कि अगर मैंने actually में सब कुछ बोल दिया जो मैं सोच रही हूँ, it will have very bad repercussions on me. Like how do we behave in front of our bosses, right? बहुत सदाचार के साथ behave करेंगे.
You would never get angry at your boss, but you get angry at your subordinate, right? So we are operating predominantly, as Tuna was saying earlier, our animal nature. We're doing things to look good, to get validation, to get treats, or we're doing things out of fear. Yeah, Visalakshi, you have a question.
So my question is, right behavior leads to right thoughts, right? Right behavior.
Opposite.
So righteous sad vichar is righteous thoughts. So
righteous
thoughts will then lead to sad achar, which is righteous behavior and attitude. Okay, so righteous thoughts lead to righteous behavior and righteous attitude, which then lead to righteous actions.
So it's written here in the paragraph as well. Righteous actions are based on virtuous thoughts, right? I mean, it becomes quite clear when you experience it for yourself. You cannot even move a finger without having a thought first to move a finger. That means and thought we understand we can choose to control. I can choose to think of a pink elephant right now, for example, or not think of it, right? And all of you are now thinking of pink elephants, right? So thoughts, but you can choose what to think about. So choice is always at a thought level. And if you control your thoughts, you can control all the actions that you do.
And this is very important to note. The magnificent edifice of righteous actions is built upon virtuous thoughts. So you cannot build a lasting the पूरी building की जो the basis is there. The basis of the entire building is actually is that नींव जो कहते हैं ना नींव. The base is thoughts. So if we focus on getting the righteous thoughts in place, then eventually it will cause, there is no way that those thoughts do not translate into the righteous attitude and righteous behavior. And on top of that, they will eventually lead to righteous actions. And that righteous actions, if it is not built on that and it is only based on looking good, then we know that base is not strong. It is not stable. It is based on a very vacillating, base. And so that building is going to eventually fall. You might look good and you can continue to look good, but only so far. At some point of time, that looking good image is going to fall apart really badly.
So the other aspect of this chapter title, right, where it talks about yoga, connection, right? how does this division, Vibhaga Yoga, right? How does this division create connection? Every chapter is a yoga, right? It's an opportunity for us to connect with Bhagwanji. That's what yoga means, connection with Bhagwanji. So how does this division create yoga? And the answer to that essentially is that every time we experience a demonical property, it is because we have to experience it. It is something that is bubbling inside of us that is showing us our own mirror, our own attachment, our own expectation, our own um, uh, fear of an unknown result or whatever it is. So, and that becomes an opportunity to give up. That becomes an opportunity for yoga. That gives an opportunity for yajna. That is how this chapter focuses on yoga on a daily basis, because until we are humans, these demonical properties will exist. Anger is experienced by every single human being in the world, but the saints don't ever act on it. They experience it and let it go.
Or transform the energy.
Or transform it.
End of the day, fear or anger, these are just energies. You can never kill it. We all know that, right? It's a basic principle of physics. Energy can never be created, nor can it be destroyed. It can only be transformed from one form to another. So the same thing applies to anger or fear or anxiety. These are all forms of energy, which we will transform. And we will not transform, let's be very clear. We, as in our ego, can never transform anything. It is Bhagwanji's grace that will transform. Okay. So that we'll start the first shloka. Ritesh, do you want to read with us?
Did you say my name?
Yes.
Okay, yes.
I'm glad there's more light in your room today.
Thank you. This it has brought in light in my life. The first three shlokas deal with divine properties.
Shri Bhagavanuvacha.
Shri Bhagavanuvacha.
Abhayam Sattva Samshuddhihi.
Abhayam Sattva Sanshuddhi.
Jnana Yoga Vyasvasthitihi.
Jnana Yoga Vyavasthitihi.
Dhanam Damascha Yajnascha.
Dhanam Damascha Yagyascha.
Swadhyayastapa Ajavam.
Svadhyayastapa Ajavam. The Lord said, fearlessness, purity of mind, steadfast pursuance of yoga for self-realization, charity, restraint of senses, performance of yajnas, scriptural studies, austerity, restitute.
Next.
So let's
We'll do property by property, one by one. We'll read and we'll stop.
So first thing, before we get into the first property itself, is like I mentioned, across the next three shlokas, there are 26 divine properties. Yeah. And as Tuvina mentioned, this is already inside of us. This is our factory setting. This is what we come with. We've just forgotten it. We've forgotten it because of our masks of likes and dislikes, our masks of control that, oh, if I do this, I'll get more of this. And those masks have made us completely forgotten what our true nature is. This is our true nature. So if you read the very first quality, which is fearlessness, and the last quality is humility, right? We work on these two, everything else will fall in place. They're all interconnected. So understanding each quality or understanding the quality you want to implement fully, deeply, and internalizing it itself will help you evoke all of them. Yeah, so we'll look at the very first.
The divine properties. In this shlok, the Lord describes 9 of the 26 divine properties. First, fearlessness, apprehension of an undesirable occurrence or non-occurrence of the desirable creates a despondent agitation of the mind called fear. Non-perception of reality is the root cause of fear. It disappears when the benevolent hand of the self is seen in all happenings, giving rise to fearlessness.
So, fearlessness in this shloka is the first word, abhayam. Right? Abhayam. And then the second one would be sattva samshuddhi, that's purity of mind. So, abhayam is, as Abhinav said, it is, if you think about all these divine qualities as a train, right? Then fearlessness is the engine of that train. Fearlessness is the engine of the train. You get fearlessness tied down, everything else will follow. But what is interesting that you will read, as Abhinav was saying, that you catch actually any one of them, any one of these 26 properties, and you truly, truly, truly practice it, everything else will come together. Okay, but we start with abhayam, fearlessness. Fear, where does fear come from? And what are the types of fears? There are three main types of fears. The first fear is related to me. Okay, me as in like what is related to my physical existence. Okay, so that's your first fear. Fear of this body and fear of life, fear of everything that is, fear of pain, fear of everything else that is related to me, okay, and related to this body. The second fear is related to the fear of mind.
So with the physical fear, right? Even in that, you can very clearly see you sometimes have the fear of either doing too much of it or too less of it. Fear of getting injured, fear of getting pain, and the fear of something creates greater anticipation, which creates greater fear. So you may have got a fracture once, it hurt. That fracture is now over, it's gone. But now you're so scared of getting a fracture again, or a fracture is a bad example. Injection is a great example. As a 2-year-old or 3-year-old, you got an injection, it hurt. You built that fear around, oh my God, it hurts a lot. Most adults, most of us know now, we're like, yeah, it's a pinprick. It hurts for a little bit, but it's okay. Right? But there are lots of people for whom that fear of the needle is far greater than the actual fear. The fear, while it's in physical form, it is never the physical fear. It is the fear in the mind that gets generated, but projecting in the physical.
Yeah, because fear doesn't exist in reality, right? It's all in our mind. What exists in reality is just pain and pleasure. That's at the body level. Fear exists at the level of mind. So first fear is fear of me and my physicalness, everything related to all my senses and the experience it gives to me.
And survival.
Second is the fear of mind. Then we expand and we say, okay, me, now fear of everything that's mine. So my relationships, my possessions, my role, my image, right? That is the fear of mind.
So let's expand it a little more. This would be the fear of calling a client in the fear that you get rejected.
And
this
so
is the fear of failure.
Gets lost.
Going and asking your boss for a promotion, fear of rejection. Right? It is also with the fear of uncertainty, which stops a lot of us. If we go and do something unknown, and that is also the fear of being exposed.
So uncertainty is very interesting, right? Life is uncertain, right? Everything in our life is uncertain because we can't really predict the future in totality. Now, there are two ways to approach it. When we are grounded in fear, then that unknown creates anxiety. It creates the fear of unknown, as Abhinav was saying, right? It creates anxiety in us. And when we are fully grounded, then the same certainty will be viewed very differently as surprises, as like, oh, life is a box of chocolates, right? That's the difference between how that uncertainty can be viewed positively or negatively. And then the third one is a subtler fear, which are not related to my physical body's existence, which is related to pain and pleasure and all. It is not related to mine, but these are these even more uncertain fears of what people will think of me.
Looking good.
Yeah, it's all related to my images and hundreds of things that I grew up in my mind, right? So I think one of the key things that we should be doing this week is we should be putting down a list of our fears in these three categories. Like, identify where does fear stop me, or where does fear propel me into certain types of actions. Identify the existence of fear in our lives. It's very, very important. Otherwise, this chapter doesn't turn real. And fear is the most important thing for us to face, because fear, if we look at, in yoga, we talk about various chakras inside of us. And chakras are, the first chakra is the Mooladhara chakra. It is the base, right? It is the very first chakra. Fear resides in that base chakra. Fear comes from, as I said, non-perception of reality is the root cause of fear. Fear only exists because we think of ourselves as this body. Because we live with a sense of separation. Because this is me, and then there is this rest of the world. There is a separation between rest of the world and me. Correct? And that is why there is a concept of me and there's a concept of mine, which is the whole root cause of fear. Until we address this fear, when we address the fear, we balance our first chakra. If we don't balance our first chakra, we'll never be able to balance the subsequent chakras. And where does our moksha lie? Moksha lies here. And we all know that we can never reach here without God's grace. But it is our job, through everything that we are reading, is to go up. Our consciousness has to rise up through all our chakras until the Agya chakra here. Consciousness cannot rise unless the chakras are balanced and open and cleansed. So our very first chakra that needs to be balanced is by addressing all our fears. And we can only address our fears once we recognize all our fears. We have to figure out what are we fearful of? So why are we fearful of them? And then address them head on, rather than trying to put on mask over mask over mask and try to say, okay, I'm going to sort this out by another and another. There is nothing that we need to do.
So let's talk about this part that Tuvina is saying, right? How do we address these fears, right? So the first part is very important, which is becoming aware of how it shapes your entire being. Because like Tuvina said, that fear is the base for all irritation, frustration, anger, hypocrisy, gyan dena logo ko, looking good, all of those things, right? In this shloka, what is written is it disappears when the benevolent hand of the self is seen in all happenings, giving rise to fearlessness. So let's think about that. How do we move from fear to fearlessness? It's what we studied in chapter 9 and throughout Gita is seeing that Bhagwanji is every single place. And if he is every single place inside, including inside of us, and of course inside of your spouse and your parents and your children, then he only wants what is our good for our ultimate benefit. And our ultimate benefit is moksha, happiness. Right? Now, let me again say this slightly differently. All of us will reflect back on our life. We'll look at all the trauma, all the events, all the failings, all the rejections we've gone through. And today we will say, you know what, it was all for the best. We all have faith in hindsight. That's why they say hindsight is 20/20. What Gita is saying, you already know from experience it will be for your benefit. Then why not operate from it today? Because you already know it. And what is stopping you from operating it today is because you feel very strongly you can control the outcome.
No, because we want to have, because we have a lot of concepts that we can't let go. We have a concept of, I have a concept of myself, right? That's the biggest concept of who I am. I am a good person. मैं तो गीता पढ़ती हूँ, मैं तो बहुत ही अच्छी हूँ, है ना? So now how can somebody say something to the contrary to me? बोल के देखो कोई, correct? I have that concept of myself. I have a concept of, oh, I am the CEO of so and so, oh, I'm the manager of so and so, oh, I'm a marketing head, oh, I'm a salesperson, oh, I'm a fantastic trader. We have these concepts of ourselves around our job, around our roles. I'm a great mother, I'm a fantastic daughter, I'm such a good sister. All these weird concepts we have of ourselves, and we cannot let go of them. And the moment life comes up to us, which is in controversion to these concepts of ourselves, it causes great flux, great fear. What Abhinav just posted right today before the class in our group. You read that, right? There is this the concept of flowing with the life. We can't flow with the life. We don't know how to flow with life. We only know how to resist life constantly. And we are constantly resisting life because we have this concept of ourselves which we have to hold on to. There's a concept of life we have, that this is how life is supposed to unfold. This is who I am. This is how my spouse should be. This is how my children should be. This is how children's life should be. This is how they must behave in their school, in their college, and later on in their this is the kind of job they must have. And then we have a concept of what spouse they should bring in as well, and what they should be doing with their children. Boss, our concepts never stop. We have very strong views of exactly who I should be and what my life and everybody who touches my life should be like. We have concepts about our friends, of how they should behave with me, what they can or cannot say to me. I don't give freedom to people around me to say what they need to or what they want to, because oh my god, it will create a massive fracture in my concept of me. Right? So I'm constantly living in a state of fear, a fear of what will this person say to me, how can they say this to me, and I'm constantly trying to do everything to manage this around myself. I'm constantly managing these concepts, and that is why we are living in a constant state of anxiety and fear. उसने कुछ कह दिया तो मैं वहां चली गई, उसने ये कह दिया तो मैंने अपनी मदर इन लॉ को ये बोला, उन्होंने मुझे कुछ कह दिया तो क्या हो जाएगा, अरे बाप, दुनिया तबाह हो जाएगी भाई, उन्होंने कह कैसे दिया मुझे ये बात, किसी ने कुछ छोटी सी चीज बोल दी हमारी लाइफ खत्म हो जाती है. And then we are constantly creating such a big thing in our head about why they said what they, वो तो बोल के चले गए, याद भी नहीं होगा उन्हें, हमने अपने लिए बड़ा बवाल खड़ा कर लिया इसके बाद.
So adding to all of this, when, like we mentioned in the earlier part of the class, fear will be there. It will lose energy over a period of time, but whatever prarabdha, whatever we are destined to experience, we will experience. You will still fear a snake or fear of needle or whatever. The only choice we have is whether we react to it or we respond to it. And our response has to be by first giving it up to Bhagwan Ji. Bhagwan Ji, आप ही ने मुझे दिया है ये fear, आप ही इसको मिटा सकते हो. You've only given me the fear, you only have to take it away. I am giving it up to you, it's come back to me. I don't know why.
Right. But like what I'm saying, right? When can you give it up? You can only give it up when you can recognize it in the first place.
Correct.
There is awareness. There's awareness of the fear. And fear pervades our life like nobody's business.
Yeah. So, all of us, most of us here are parents, right? We've all seen fearlessness as a parent and we've all experienced it. And that fearlessness is when you see a 2-year-old child next to his mother. They are completely fearless. As long as they're close to mother. That's who we need to be. We need to be close to our mother. So we become fearless. Kids are in a world where everything is unknown. And they still do everything out of happiness and joy and exploration and experience. If we get into the unknown, we get stressed. Because we fear not being able to control the outcome. So can we move from being an adult to going back to being the child who can be it out of happiness? Jo bhi hoga, acha hoga, yaar. Whatever will happen will be so amazing. My life will be amazing. I will be amazing.
And again,
my family will be amazing.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about Bhagwan will take care of it.
Correct. But the thing is that again, that he's saying that it's amazing, right? We all hear it and we're like, yeah, it will be amazing. But then again, we'll have a very big concept around what amazing means. Okay, amazing means a 4-bedroom house and my children are like studying in the Ivy League colleges and are getting like, $200,000 salaries. And, I have like, I'm carrying a Louis Vuitton bag. That is amazing for me. The moment that amazingness, one part of this goes away, and I suddenly realize my child comes and tells me, dude, I don't want to go to an engineering college. I want to pursue drama. Okay, and that's where my concept is going to go down to the ground. Now my life is not amazing anymore. Right? Because my concept of amazingness has been broken. Amazingness does not have anything to do with the physical nature of the world, right? It has everything to do with what is in my ultimate welfare. And what is our ultimate welfare? Our ultimate welfare is that I will be in a state of happiness and bliss, irrespective of what happens outside of me. That is nirvana. That is moksha. That is my ultimate welfare. And Bhagwanji will constantly move me towards that.
See, fear, it necessarily and always stems from wrong knowledge. And that wrong knowledge mainly stems from experience and ego. Let me, so we recently, as you all know, we recently got a pet dog, right? Now, I find it very fascinating that every time we switch on the TV and he looks at the TV, even if the TV is mute and he sees people playing cricket, he'll start barking. He's like, he's scared. What are these guys? What are they doing on the TV? Right? And then I realize that unlike human beings, the animal has no choice. He will be scared every time it comes on. Then when he's, after 2-3 minutes, he'll be like, okay, nothing's really wrong. He'll go back to being quiet. But he doesn't have a choice about responding by barking.
Yeah.
By reacting. He will always bark. Somebody comes on the door, he'll bark. Whether it's a person he knows, doesn't know, doesn't matter. He doesn't have a choice to experience fear. He has to go through it. Because Bhagwan, for whatever his prarabdha, he has to go through all that. Yeah. Right? Now, same thing with children. As they grow older, they get scared of sharks. They get scared of lions, snakes, tigers. Right? And then when you grow older, your intellect becomes bigger. So you start rationalizing fears. You're like, you know what? I don't need to be scared of sharks. I'll just always stay safe. But if a shark's on TV, it doesn't matter. We grow older, we see war movies where it's very gruesome. Yeah, I know it's a movie. It's okay. Yeah, that's what really happened. I don't need to be scared about it. You show that to a 5-year-old child, they will internalize that fear that, oh my God, somebody can die like that? Oh my God, people can be that mean to each other? And that fear will set for that child, right? So, what do we do with fear? We try and intellectualize it, not really deal with it. We never give it up to Bhagwanji. We try and control it so that it doesn't come out. We mask, as Una was saying, we mask ourselves in these roles so that we don't have to deal with that our fear that I'm not good enough. Of course, I'm not good enough. I'm a human being. I'm in sansar. I have a human body. There is no way I'm perfect. And there's no way anything I do is perfect. But we'll do so much to protect that. We'll do so much to fit in with certain people because I don't want to lose their validation. Right? So fear has a way of wrong knowledge will keep fueling fear. The only way to get to fearlessness is filling your mind with the right knowledge, gyan, as we were saying, virtuous thoughts, so that you can start giving it up and achieve fearlessness.
So, we talk a lot about, fear being seated in our base chakra, Muladhara chakra. We need to balance the Muladhara chakra to be able to move up, right? And I've been thinking about what does it really mean in practical terms, right? In some cases, it feels very, I've read a lot about stuff which at the surface of it seems very airy fairy. Like, you colors, there's a color associated with it, surround yourself with a certain type of color, or, wear certain types of stones and all of these things, right? There are energies around. Honestly, all of that comes way later, right? Getting into stuff like that is not going to help you deal with your fears at all, because that our fears right now are at a very, very gross level. The first step to balancing these chakras is to actually deal with those gross fears by actually identifying and looking into those fears in very, very starkly. And most of these fears were created, as Abhinav was saying, at the time when we were little children. At various points of life, at various points, so fear is inside of us. Okay, when we were born, those fears were there. But how did they get expressed in this life? Okay, those are the first fears we have to deal with. And then we'll go deeper and deeper and deeper. But let's talk about the fears that got expressed in this life. They got expressed because of certain triggers when we were little kids. Something happened in our life, and all of us, there is no way that we've not gone through it, right? These things are talked about in different languages, in different contexts. So, but we all have experienced fear. Something happened, and that fear, which was subliminal inside of us, got expressed. Okay, and it brought about a certain part of my apparent character. And then to mask that fear, instead of dealing with it and saying that it is, see, when I'm a child, I don't know. As a 5-year-old, as a 3-year-old, I got faced with a fear. Okay. It may have been real, it may have been unreal, it may have been something that I got subjected to, but I make a big deal out of it because I'm a very young child. I'm a 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 5-year-old dealing with that life. Okay. And I find a way to mask that fear, to deal with that situation, which becomes a strong suit inside of me. Strong suit, as in it becomes a way for me to deal with that kind of situation whenever it comes up again. And it helps me, and it becomes my strong suit because now I think I can deal with the situation. So it is the right way. It becomes a right way to be. And at some stage, it becomes very subliminal inside of it, goes inside my subconsciousness. Then the moment anything related to that comes up, whether now this behavior is the right way to be or not, it doesn't matter. That behavior will come up automatically to protect myself and to show that I'm not fearful. Okay, now instead of it being something that is helping me, in certain situations, it will help me. That is why I've continued with that behavior. Okay, but in certain situations, it will be my limiting factor because in those particular situations, exactly who I shouldn't be. But I have no such discernment any longer. Because now I'm operating out of fear without even knowing it. And I'll always think of those 10 situations where that behavior helped me. And I'll continue to pound it in those 90 other situations where it does not help me any longer. Okay, so we need to really see and go back to our childhood to see where, first of all, identify the fears. Find where that fear came from. This is very deep swadhyaya we have to do. Find out what I'm fearful of. Find what instances in my life created those fears. Find the impact that that fear has on me. Find out how I dealt with that fear, who I am, what is my strong suit, that what is the mask I wear to deal with that fear on a daily basis. And then find out what is the impact it has on my life. What is the positive and what is the negative it creates in my life for holding on to that way of being. And once I'm aware, I don't have to do anything beyond that. I just have to become aware without judging. When we are in a space of non-judgmental awareness, we are closest to God. And that's when God will do his work. He will kill that fear. He will finish that fear for us. Because once we become aware, we can never become unaware ever again. And that changes our way of being. Slowly but surely. Every time it comes up again, you again watch it. Oh, there I go again. Oh, there I did that again. That's it. Don't hate yourself for, oh my God, how did I do it again? Never say this, I'll never do it again. Because I'll never do it again comes from a space of ego. Right? Your ego is the one that has created the fear in the first place. And now your ego is only saying that I will deal with it. You will never be able to deal with it. Your ego will never be able to deal with it. It will only transform from one to another to another. So tumko lagega, I have dealt with this, but it has not been dealt with. It has only transformed into something else to come up at a later stage to keep your ego alive. Okay, so the first step to balance the Mooladhara chakra, the first way to deal with fear is to identify all your fears. Fears related to me, fears related to mine, fears related to my concepts. Become aware and then become aware of, like, try going down to understand where that fear came from. It may not come to you immediately, but keep at that inquiry again and again and again for as long as you need to be able to find that out. It is not going to be easy. We've talked about this before of how when we have to open up the boxes in our basement, it's a very unpleasant experience. The only way it is going to be unpleasant, the reason it is going to be unpleasant is because we immediately start judging ourselves. We immediately start to say, oh, I can't be. It starts to break my concepts of me, right? I'm supposed to be this amazing, beautiful, awesome person and a person who's like, doing good all the time. I can never be, bad person. And if I behave poorly, it's always because of other people and their behavior patterns that triggered me into it. I'm not really that person. Right? And when I start to discover things about myself, it starts to break those concepts of myself down. And that's a very scary thing for ego. Because ego starts to dissolve in that moment. And ego will do everything to protect itself. So it will draw up all kinds of emotions inside of you. Which is why you should never look in that deep without sitting in the lap of God. If you're doing this by yourself, you can get into really dark corners of your mind. You can discover all kinds of things and it can get you into depression. You will not know how to get out of it. So you do this self-inquiry only by sitting in the lap of Bhagwanji and by giving it up to Bhagwanji. Then you are safe. Then you'll be able to see it and come out of it. Okay, I saw it, fine. I saw it and I came out of it. And you don't have to do anything about it. Don't try and create an operation. You're not a doctor. You will not clean it up. He will do his job. You just need to see.
I think the one thing I do want to highlight about fearlessness and the way it's structured in this chapter, and of course, we've spent the whole class talking about fearlessness because it's that important. It's that deep. It is highlighted as the first quality. It's not the 15th, it's not the 24th, it's not the 6th, it's not the second, it is the first quality. Why do you think? And when we ask for whether we are good people, will we ever write fearlessness? No. So why is it the first quality inside of us? It is the most important quality because it focuses your mind from outward to inward. To focusing your mind from VVGP and the outcomes and the interactions and the expectations and the likes, it's focusing your mind saying all of that comes from outside. Focus it inward. Once you focus it inward, you can give it up to me, not to me, right? You give it up to me.
And the very basis of fearlessness is what? An amazing amount of strength. An amazing amount of strength that will allow you to deal with anything and everything, which is why you will not be fearful any longer. You will be a very, very strong person. A person who is a fearless person is a very strong person who can deal with anything and everything and everyone. है ना? हमारे scriptures में they talk about various types of दान, various types of charities. The highest charity is called the Abhay Dan. The dan of allowing somebody to become fearless. Abhay Dan is the highest dan. Supporting somebody who's feeling a lot of fear and allowing them to become free of that fear is the biggest thing you can do. That is why law and order has such a high regard in our society and judiciary has such a high regard in society. Because that at a very physical gross level in our society allows people fearlessness to live their lives.
Allows them free expression, freedom of speech. That's why it's important.
So Abhay Dan is that important. And that's why we are going to, the only thing we focus on is fearlessness. Everything else, every other quality will come by itself. We'll talk about all the other qualities. But the one quality that you must focus on in terms of like bringing it home is this. This is our swadhyay, this is our homework for the week and not just for this week. Trust me, it will take several weeks.
Years, possibly.
But we need to start identifying and you will see layers of it, right? In the first week, you will find those one or two things. And then later on, you'll find another layer and another layer and another layer. It will be an ongoing job to constantly find what am I fearful of now? What am I fearful of now? Right? Fearlessness is the most important divine quality. Once we bring that in, everything else will fall in its.
Amazing.
We'll stop.
Yeah.
The next class, I think we'll be able to do all others probably rather quickly, but yeah. Should focus on this.
Every time you say something like that, no, the opposite happens. Bhagwanji keeps telling you, don't set expectations. Every time Jana says, "Arey, we'll finish that chapter," and then we realize we're stuck on we just one shloka that entire class. Okay, so we have about 11 minutes. So let's do a round of takeaways for anyone. Anyone who'd like to start?
I can start. The thing about recognizing fears and addressing them, when you were discussing that, I thought of one fear that I want to examine the layers of is the fear of missing out. And I have that fear quite a bit, and especially in activity that I think I'm attached to. So in that situation, not being there or present. So the goal is from instead of fear of missing out, I want to change it to the joy of missing out. And it's all about perception, and that's something I learned about how I look at it, and that how every situation is a blessing and a learning as well. And if I'm missing out on something, it's the bigger picture because of it was meant to be, and that was my priority thing. So that's something I want to work on.
Go next. Thought is the subtlest and is in the top. So righteous thought leads to the righteous action, and the choices that we'll have to make is at the thought level, right? That's going to put us in the right bow or how to handle things. So that will probably lead to my fear or fearlessness also is the takeaway.
I can go next.
Just
So
one second.
I think
Sorry, there's one more thing. So Vijay, you're absolutely right. In terms of like how Sadachar and everything, right? Like that entire hierarchy, Sadvichar, Sadachar, and then Satkar. The issue is that fear is at a very guttural level, at a very reactionary level. Okay. So you will and you should, for you to be able to really capture fear, you will need to address it. I mean, to start with, of course, after the fact, when you're feeling any kind of negative feeling, like actually address it directly. Don't just focus on like thoughts at a generic level, is what I would say, right? But like address fear directly, because you will never be able to create gap enough between your reaction and your thought to be able to capture the thought beforehand, because fear operates at that very subliminal level. We're not even aware that we are acting out of fear. We think we are acting because this is my way of being, which helps me win in this world. It is the right way of being in my mind. In most cases, these strong suits we develop to deal with our fear actually help us win in this world. And they, on the face of it, seem like very positive qualities. Like in my case, hard work, I think of myself as this really hardworking person, and I'm constantly working very hard. Hard work in general is considered a virtue in this world. It is a way for me to mask with my fears, which I developed very, very early. Okay, so you really need to like go deep down, is what I'm saying, because sometimes fear can be masked, and in fact, not some. In all cases, you will discover that your very positive ways of being are in some way masks for some deeper level of fear.
Understood. So my why I did put it that way is even the chapters are aligned that way, right? Like your Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, and Jnana Yoga. As in, like once you have the required knowledge, okay. Say for example, if there is a health issue in the family with the kid or the parents or whatever it is, it's going to trigger all kind of this thing, all kind of fears in you, right? What will happen this way, that way, all the time, because a lot of unknowns are there going to be there. But unless we start practicing the way it is going to be, and start taking things the way as it comes, and imbibe it, then that's a way of handling. That's where I was mentioning about like the thought is the core, essentially.
Yeah. Totally agree. So and what I was saying was one step earlier. You've already experienced fear. जैसे ही कुछ हुआ,
But he's not talking
right?
to you.
But
I just
yeah.
take away a sentence.
Yeah.
You're doing
Okay. We'll move on.
I'll go next.
Yeah.
My takeaways today is the fear. It's a three me, mine, and my concepts. So I have to be handled with mine and my concept. Always I have the fear in mine. Me is not there. I can feel the me is not coming much, but the mine and my concept, right? Always I'm pushing. If it is good concept also, I'm pushing to my kids. So like whenever it happens, so I think my concept is because of my fear, I pushing them. So I have to like go through it. And then that the another one is the righteous thoughts. The righteous thoughts, it's leads to righteous behavior, righteous action, and then the above should be right. So which this is I am practicing, but if I practicing these righteous thoughts, righteous behavior also, still the behavior when it comes mine and my concepts, the mind is saying, oh, it's a righteous thing right here, but the fear is not able to it's very difficult actually. It's maybe layer, how you said, you have to go on layer by layer, layer by layer. I think we have to, yeah. So I try to do. Thank you.
I go next. Okay. There are two main takeaways. One is this, like when you are talking about the Pandava and Kaurava army, all the energy focus into the same goal, and the Kaurava army is all fully distracted. So how, when there is anything, how to, the focus full entire energy into the goal. So that is one of the main takeaways for me. So always have to remember that again and again, where mind is getting distracted, and put it back again to the goal. So second one is how to deal with the fear. So the thing is um, it is very internal. When the any thought arises from the fear, we know internally our heartbeat changes, or we feel very internally in the heart level. So when we are feeling that, we had to catch hold of it. And as you said, when reaction comes up, give it to Bhagwanji. That is a way to transform it to response.
Amazing. Amazing. You're absolutely right. All of these emotions, fear and anger, they first start at the subtle level, which is the thought level, but then they very quickly manifest in the body level. Heart rate, sweating, heat in the face, like your hands get sweaty. So all of these are cues for you to become aware and step away from whatever you're doing so that you can move from reaction to response. Amazing.
I'll go next.
Haji.
First of all, beautiful chapter. We have so many thoughts, and we live so much of our life in our thoughts, and working on that, where we have the exact things to follow and practice. Beautiful chapter. One thing is, where we talked about fearlessness, that we have non-perception of reality. We think of us as our body. That's our biggest fear. I mean, that also means fear of death, right? If we have, let's say, if we would have had infinite time on this earth, we would have been like, okay, it's okay, we'll see, we have so much time. But because we know that we are in this body, death is going to come one day, and we will be leaving this body and in this place, that is a non-perception of reality. But reality is, which was told us in the second chapter only, that we are the soul and not the body. So that is one thing to again keep in mind, that yeah, we are not the body. And then second thing, when Abhinav said, right, if we are on a divine path, we don't need external validation, but like we should be firm and like rooted on the knowledge that we know and the knowledge that we are reading. Because just yesterday, this happened again to me, one situation where I was just casually talking to a friend, and I told her that, I have recently we had some bills for our helpers, visit to doctors. So then I just casually told her, and then she was like, oh, you first see how her work is. If you like her work and she's good, then you pay for the bills. Otherwise, you take money from her. Then then in the evening, I was thinking that that is so wrong. Like, we don't want to do that. Like, my husband and I, we don't want to do that because, oh, sorry. Sorry. So then we were thinking that we don't want to do that because my action shouldn't be based on someone else's behavior. It's I will do no matter how the other person is, right? No matter how the person is. Why would my behavior change based on what the person is or what the person is doing? It's I thought in my mind, it's as simple as that. We will just think of like what we want to do, and that is how we will do, not based on someone else's action, because that's their thing, what they are doing and whatever. So we don't want to do that, something like that. So it's like this sentence which Abhinav said. So it's like, we will get situations from external world, from people around us telling us sometimes, planting these thoughts where, of some other things which might not be right as per the knowledge, the ultimate knowledge, I mean. But then we just need to be rooted and, think of our divine path. So yeah, that really helped.
And that's a very good example of moving away from doing to being, right? I am not going to be just friendly to one person or second person, and I won't be friendly to the third person, but I will be a friendly person no matter who is in front of me, right? Exactly the same thing, Manish. So that's a very good example of, living that principle. Thank you for sharing.
Prem, would you like to share something?
Yeah, I was just gonna unmute. I think this chapter and today has been very important for me, being that, dropping my daughter off to uni and having so much fear that, she's in a foreign country and, we are home here and she's like, when you have your only child, so it's really like hit home on how to deal with this and how to, have faith that, there is a higher being and there's, she's going to be taken care of. So I think today's class has really hit home on, like, how to deal with fear. And it was really a very good class. So a lot to take, a lot to sit and also think that how to deal with each of these, like, layers and sub layers of fear, and, to find where the root really lies. So it was really very beautiful class today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great takeaway. Yeah, Kakuli.
To say after Prem, because I wanted to tell him that I joined in 2021 in April this class just before my daughter was about to go to the university, and I have one daughter, so you're in the right place at the right time, I think. So yeah, welcome.
What I think is very low. You can just
you can hear me.
Yeah, okay, we can hear you. Yes, fine.
Okay, maybe I. Can you hear me?
Much better.
Okay, so I just wanted to, I wanted to raise my hand just after Prem, because as I told him that I had joined just before my daughter had gone, and it's been a beautiful journey, a lot of learning from this, and you are at the right place. And there's so much you'll take away from Gita and from this class. And coming to my takeaway, I've been last few days now, my fear has shifted from myself from myself to my daughter. Whether she'll get a good master's, if she goes into a job, will she be able to cope with the industry? Unnecessary thoughts, I think, not required, but and which brings me to understand that everything is happening at the thought level. If we can address our thoughts, we can be aware of our thoughts and capture and kind of be aware and capture it at that point. And the most difficult thing is, it's very easy, when we are class, we are completely surrendered. I'm surrendered. I'm going to give it to Bhagwanji. But when it comes to it, as Kavita was saying, it's not easy, because unless you feel calm from inside about a situation, which means you are not surrendered. And this is one of the most difficult part, is to completely, think that whatever is happening is for my own good, for my own journey, and I just leave it to him. So that is what, as you said, make it a practice point to every situation you are fearful. I mean, as you go through this, how many times you fear about how many things. Some may be, okay. I mean, there's valid reasons. Some are just unnecessarily not required, because you're imagining about the future. It has not even happened. We live so much in the future. So yes, for me, this will be a takeaway to. And given Bhagwanji himself makes it the number one virtue, to how to address it and go forward. I mean, yes. So that's my takeaway.
So
How to practice this.
let me comment on this a little bit, right? The whole Maya that we live in, the whole world we live in, lives in a principle of the survival instinct. Anything that exists will try and survive. So you can experience this firsthand with anger inside of us. Anger is an emotion, but anger also has a survival instinct. So when you're angry because your son dropped a glass of milk, right, and you yell or whatever, then your anger will take you to, you know what, you do it every week, and you don't even clean your room, and you didn't do your homework, and you did this, and you had a bag of chips, and you're eating unhealthy food, blah, blah. So what is anger doing? The glass of milk was just a trigger for it to find survival. Once it's there, it's looking at other ways to survive. After the glass of milk has been dropped, your spouse, you are not doing a job good enough. How many times have I told you? You don't make him do this. Right? Now it's projected. Then the helper. Then God forbid your subordinate calls you. Or somebody just keeps, that's a survival instinct. With anger, it's very visible when you observe. And it's the same with fear. If you have a consistent fear, that is, the fear that we had when we were 5 years old is not the same fear manifestation today, but the fear is the same. You're just looking for ways to survive. And what what we read today, righteous thoughts lead to righteous actions. Fill your mind with righteous thoughts. Don't give it fodder. It doesn't have any more fodder, it will dissipate. It doesn't have any more hay to burn. Right? So it's something for you to just become aware of, observe and become aware.
But also, see, we okay, now you've got this fear, right? Now this is important because this will be a practice point for all of us going forward. You've recognized. Pehle to we don't even recognize that there's a fear. Okay. Now we've reached a point कि हाँ ठीक है चलो recognize हो रहा है कि यार I am feeling these negative thoughts, I'm feeling these negative feelings, and it's not right. I recognize it. Okay, I'm feeling it, but I'm also aware that of what I'm feeling. That's already a step forward, right? Pehle to we would keep wallowing into it. Right now, fear has come and it takes over, and we are only wallowing in it, and we are flowing with it, and that energy, and we are giving more and more and more and more energy to it. So the first step is this ability to look outside of it. Ki, "Yaar, this is what I'm feeling." Right? We are not wallowing and we're not flowing with it any longer. So we're now in that space where we're able to recognize it, and okay, now I'm feeling it, but yet I have this awareness outside of it. Now the point is ki, till date, what we have done is कि अब ये आ रहा है फिर भगवान जी को दे दो, without knowing how it will work, right? We just give it and then we move away, right? And नाम जप करो. नाम जप करो. Why? Because righteous thoughts. Fill your mind with righteous thoughts. Fill your mind with the right things rather than keep on thinking and dwelling on fear, right? Now that is generally what we have done thus far, and which we should continue to do. However, as a third step, now that we are on chapter 16, is we now need to say, okay, for example, I am gripped with fear at this moment. I don't have time to think about it right now. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start, first of all, not focus on that and do my Nam Jap so that I'm not being gripped by that fear. Now my mind takes another thought and I then go on with whatever I need to do. Okay, so I tear myself away from the fear at this moment. Okay, and I go and do whatever I need to do. At a later stage, I need to sit down, okay, get myself in a Satoguni state of mind. Whether that Satoguni state of mind is in the morning, typically it is in the morning, I need to do some reflection sessions. Whether I do that reflection session with someone else, I do my writing, I do my thinking, but I need to, I know the time, but I need to do that reflection session now and try and go a little bit deeper as to like where this fear is coming from. What is this? What is happening to me? Why am I so scared by this? Why is this triggering me? So that is the next step. So we can't just like we have had like those first two things that we've been doing thus far. At chapter 16, we need to go deeper. But we need to have the ability to say, when will I do that reflection session? Not right now. Right now, I'm in office. I have to do my work. Right now, I'm in the midst of something else. I need to do that first. And at a later stage, when I can't deal with that fear at night, for example, because at night there's too much of tamogun going on. I don't have clarity of thought. I'm tired. Wrong time to think about this. At that time, my most important thing is to take myself away from it by doing Nam Jap, by distracting my mind, by doing some reading, whatever is going to get me into a Satoguni state of mind, and go to sleep. In the morning, when I'm fresh, full of energy, I need to take out my time at some time and then do my writing, do my thinking, do my manan, do my nididhyasana, figure out what's going on there. Like go deeper level. And once you go one more level deeper, you will understand a little bit more about yourself and then give that up to Bhagwan. Right? So we now need to do like more yajna, more tap. Get it? Thank you. Sorry, we've taken a lot of time, but yeah, this chapter is that important. Let's go ahead.
I can go next. So as you mentioned, like the fearlessness, it's one of the hardest thing to do. The fear is the first thing that comes to my mind whenever something happens with the family, with the job, anything that happens. That it is that fear factor is the first thing. So the one of the way that I try to control is, as you mentioned, Nam job is one of the best ways that I felt like, it helped me a great deal when I'm in that fearful mode. And also focus my energy in prayers, sit in front of the God and then do some prayers. So that all helped me a great deal with the fearful, when I feel the fear. So it also comes from, to begin with, it all starts from the thought. So I have to divert my thought from what makes me feel the fear inside me, to focus on the non-job, or put it back into the focus on the God and say like, okay, I'm focusing now on the Lord. And when I do that, that fear reduces. You can actually feel it when it reduces. So this is a very good chapter, and I'm really appreciate of the way it is going right now.
I'll just say one thing. Okay, please see, I'm fearful of everything.
She's a very practiced, I must say. Very good.
So, see, Anita, the two things that you said, exactly what Kakoli was saying, I'm just going to say this slightly differently, okay? Puja and Namjap are excellent tools to help us deal with fear, because they help us get strength from the Lord, okay? But and they will help to, like, by themselves, they have the power to help to reduce the knots that are tying us down, that cause the fear. But the way we have been practicing it thus far in general are not direct and not conscious ways. Okay, so they are not conscious. Why am I saying that? Is because even though you're doing prayer very consciously, you're not, in most cases, okay, and I'm not saying you in particular, you may be doing it differently. I'm just saying in general, most of us, when we pray in that situation, we are praying for the fear to be taken away from us, and we are praying for deliverance from that particular situation that is causing fear. Okay, we are praying for that deliverance from that situation, or we are praying ki Bhagwan ji tum sambhal lo kisi tarah se, right? And then we feel a little bit better कि यार ये बहुत भयंकर situation आ गई, I can't deal with it, with somebody else who will deal with it. Okay, we'll be putting it onto him. Great way to start off with, right? It's the way a child would do. Like if he's fearful of something, come to parents and say, भैया तुम संभाल लो, मुझसे तो नहीं संभल रहा. Fantastic place to start and fantastic place to be. But eventually we have to grow up, and which is what we are going to do now. What we are going to do now is still go back and pray, still go back and do that nam jap, but now use that nam jap and that puja's energy to say, I will now dissolve this fear. Because otherwise kya ho raha hai ki abhi to I am getting delivered from the fear, that fear will come back again and again and again and again, and I'm constantly in that gul chakkar. In chapter 16 we are saying, no, now I'm going to stand here, take Bhagwan Ji's help and dissolve this fear. Now we are in that stage, right? Now we are growing up to be able to dissolve it in the first place. कि अब ये खत्म ही हो जाए पूरी तरह से भगवान जी, भी बार-बार नहीं आए in different situations. Because now I'll deal with the root cause of it. And I'll use my gyan with Bhagwan Ji to know why this fear is false completely. And with that right knowledge, I will dissolve it. Make sense? Make sense of what we are trying to do differently now? Yeah? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
I think only Rishabh is left, right?
Hi. So I understand the cause of fear, and it's 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 quite beautifully explained. But honestly speaking, how you combat it on a daily basis is something I'll still have to think about, probably discuss with you again. But you know what what struck me the most was because the moment you said fear, the first thing that I thought of was about a year ago when I was on the LC with my unit on the line of control. Um, and that was my first experience, and there was a lot of responsibility being with so many troops there. Initially, there was a lot of fear, and then subsequently, as I spent more time on the LC, uh, it receded into a constant apprehension, right? On every morning, waking up, just making sure that everybody's all right, and just everybody's well-being in general, right? Uh, and there was this saying that used to go around between among all the commanding officers there, that fear is good, accept it, because it keeps you alive. And that is what we used to propagate to all of our troops, because if you're afraid, you are you will be more dutiful, you will be more awake, you'll be more alert. So in that sense, I found fear to be useful in navigating the challenges of this world as well. So I'm just still trying to figure out uh, if maybe if maybe fear is useful in many ways in this world, and how can I.
Very, very good thing that you brought out, Rishabh. It's a different perspective, and we've talked about it. It's good that you brought it up today. Fear is but I mean, fear has been created by Bhagwanji. He hasn't created anything which doesn't have a place in this world. Okay, everything has a place and a reason to exist. So fear is also if fear exists for exactly the reason you said. If we did not have fear of pain, we would be standing in front of a train and we don't care. Fear helps us to stop making foolish choices, and to help us preserve this body and to take care of it as a temple of God, to be able to do our duty. Right? So there is this rational fear and there are these irrational fears. There is a rational
No,
fear.
no, excellent.
Okay.
Let me rephrase this.
Yeah.
Okay. In organizations, in our culture, as parents, all of us feel we can use a tool of fear to control people, just like we can use a tool of carrot to control people, because that is how we control animals. We have a pet dog, that's how we control it. Fear and
Reward.
and reward. It is now culturally so ingrained and acceptable, but that never gets the best out of a person. And that never gets the best out of a leader. And that never gets the best out of the possibility of the organization. It is very clearly written, to get the best out of everything, you need to be aligned to purpose. And if you align to purpose and you do it with the right bhav and intention, then there is no question of fear. Arjun is on the battlefield. Bhagwanji is telling Arjun to be fearless, and he's in the middle of war.
No, but fear and fearlessness of what? You're going to get to that, right?
He's saying, don't fear any outcome, don't fear any situation. You behave out of fearlessness. In our cultural society, and we can talk about it separately because we're well over time, but in our society, we tend to do it. We've ingrained our culture where we use these as tools to get our outcome, to get control out of situations and people. So you can do more manan on it as well, but we can talk separately as well.
Yeah, but there is a nuance there. We'll talk about that, and maybe we'll try and like crisp it up for our next class for others to benefit from it as well. Okay.
Thank you. English looking closing shlokas.
ॐ सर्वेषां स्वस्तिर्भवतु सर्वेषां शान्तिर्भवतु सर्वेषां पूर्णं भवतु सर्वेषां मङ्गलं भवतु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतं गमय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ
Narayan, Narayan, everyone.
Thank you for the class.
Have a great fearless week.